The hospital corridor smelled like overcooked cabbage, bleach, and the weary kind of sadness that stretches under the skin and makes you ache just being near it. My mother's voice rose above the quiet shuffle of nurses, carrying down the corridor like an argument wrapped in prayer beads. "James, you listen to me today. Please, this is not about you being creative." Her hands fluttered, slim and tense at the collar of her kanga. I tried to keep my own voice level. "I never said it was about being creative, Mama. It's a job. It's work." My cousin Patrick stood a few steps behind her, his lips pressed thin. "Job? Where's the job, Brotha?" His snickers stung sharper than the disinfectant. "Chasing movies in Nairobi? You know no one from Huruma makes films. Better try for that matatu business like Baba did." Baba was lying a few rooms down, chest rattling every other breath. The only reason I was back in this sanitized, sunlit nightmare. I glanced through the half-frosted window across the corridor, palm trees leaning in the wind, dust riding motorbikes in a spiral across the tarmac. Mama stepped closer. Her finger poked my chest, gentle but desperate. "Your father worries. Tonight he asked, 'What about James? Has he grown wise?' He wanted to know when you will stop these childish things and become a man." I am a man. My throat closed. I looked away, focusing on the rutted vinyl floor. "This is all I have." I pressed my palm to my jeans pocket, feeling the rough shape of my notebook, the cheapest battered thing from River Road, edges curled like wilted banana leaves. I wanted to say, "This is all I'll ever have," but the words twisted bitterly in my gut. Instead, I forced my gaze to meet Mama's. "I will see Baba now." She stepped aside with a drawn sigh, Patrick muttering, "Dreamers never feed a family," in Swahili as I passed. Inside, Baba's face was heavy with exhaustion. I said little, just held his hand as dusk burned the sky orange beyond the barred window. His fingers curled weakly around mine, paper thin. In his eyes lingered that old question. "Why aren't you like Patrick? Why aren't you what we hoped?" I stayed until his eyes drifted shut, then slipped out and walked back home, head spinning with shame and hurt and the stubborn ember of my own dignity. The city outside bustled, unaware. Huruma's alleys were full of laughter I couldn't touch. I left Nairobi again 2 weeks later after Baba passed away. At the funeral, uncles whispered about wasted youth and city foolishness. My cousins jostled over his worn suits and matatu logbook. People avoided my gaze, their voices turning slick when I passed. The only thing I took was my notebook. In the years that followed, Nairobi unfolded around me like a living puzzle. I rented a bedsit in Pangani, sharing sagging foam mattresses with other artistic dropouts, chefs. Would-be actors, a crippled poet called Boniface who wrote his verses on brown supermarket bags. Work was whatever I could get, editing wedding videos, filming birthday parties, freelancing footage for news stations who never remembered my name. Sometimes, after a shoot, I'd walk alone through the National Theatre's gardens, close my eyes, and imagine what it would feel like to see my own story up on a screen. Sound spilling from speakers. But then the pressure of rent, the gloom of greasy fried potato at 1 a.m. would crowd out the hope. My relatives stopped calling. Even Mama spoke of me when she had to as our eldest, the one who does that camera thing. When I scraped together enough money to shoot a short film, the story of a matatu conductor and his daughter, nobody in the family watched it. When it was shown at a tiny university festival, the only applause came from strangers. Still, I filmed everything. Life in Huruma, kids with kites made from trash bags, market women with voices like thunder, boys racing along the train tracks. My stories. I scraped, borrowed cameras, called in every favor, lived on hope and black coffee. One New Year's Eve, I fell asleep on the couch to the sound of fireworks and dreamed Baba was pressing a camera into my hands, telling me to show him something worth believing. The bitterness became fuel. When nothing else worked, when the bills stacked up and professional friends cut me off, the anger kept me from giving up. Every sneer, every mocking word from Patrick and the rest, I stored them like coals in my stomach. I would make something if only to prove to myself that their laughter wasn't the end of my story. 3 years later, my first feature film was finished, shot on a shoestring, starring street kids and giggling aunties. It was a story about forgiveness and a longing for home. I edited it on a borrowed laptop, stealing hours from borrowed jobs. When it was finally done, I sent rough cuts to everyone I used to know, theater kids, foreign arts councils, even the British Council. For half a minute, I sat numb, blinking at the blue glow. The recognition unlocked doors. Just a crack at first. An interview on KBC, another on NTV. A meeting with screenwriters who bought me coffee and said things like, authentic voice. Still, back home, people hardly noticed. "Ah, you're on TV now?" My sister WhatsApped, as if I'd sent a nice selfie. Mama watched the interview on a neighbor's set and sent me a voice note. "You looked thin. Are you eating well?" I poured everything into my next film, Raja's a Huruma, a drama about fractured families. I worked like a man possessed, hustled for crowdfunding, begged friends for help. The cast was full of nobodies, but I believed in it. Every frame, every moment scraped from my life. When it finished, it went further than I dared hope, screening at film festivals in Cape Town, Accra, even Toronto. There, people lined up to see a story set on my street. There was money, not much, but enough to eat, to pay debts, to finally send something home that wasn't a desperate excuse. I sent a little to Mama every month. She began to pick up my calls again. One night, somewhere between the last edit of my third film and the first real applause that ever felt aimed at me, a message arrived from Patrick. It was a photo, grainy, of a new baby. "You have not seen your nephew," he wrote. "He will know his uncle is a filmmaker, even if you are crazy." The words slid past, mockery wrapped in distant affection. I stood in my dark flat, window open to the scent of rain and hot dust, and realized I wasn't angry anymore. The next festival came, Mambo Street Story Fest, Nairobi's first big public screening in the city center. My latest film was the closing feature. A local magazine put my face on their back page. From Huruma to Hollywood, James Otieno's rise. It was silly, garish, but I cut it out and mailed it home anyway. The organizers offered me tickets for my family. For hours before dialing, I rehearsed what to say, how to explain that this was real, that it mattered. When I called, Mama was quiet. After a pause, she asked, "You think we deserve to see you now?" I swallowed. "Yes, not because you believed, but because you're my family, because I want you to come." "Is there food?" Patrick chuckled in the background. "Yes, there's food, and people will see the film on a big screen." That night, I lay awake, heart pounding, counting down the days. I imagined them sitting in a row, Mama neat in her kitenge, Patrick tapping his phone, my sister and maybe her husband. I imagined their faces, doubting, skeptical, then lit by the colors and sounds I had worked so hard for. The day of the festival, I waited by the gate, nerves sharp as glass, Chiro from the festival staff fussing with her clipboard beside me. The air was thick with the smell of roasted maize, mingling with perfume, car exhaust, the spice of 1,000 bodies moving in anticipation. There were banners with my face, with the word director in white print. I wore my only good shirt, hands sweating in my pockets. When I spotted them, a little cluster by the security line, I almost laughed. Mama, regal and quiet, eyes narrowed behind her glasses. Patrick in a crisp shirt, face set in its usual half-mocking sneer. My Aunt Saida, wrapped in a golden scarf, and 3 cousins in borrowed jackets. They looked around, jostling uneasily among the crowd. I walked over, heart skittering. Patrick's eyebrows shot up. So we're not the only villagers then? I shrugged, smiling. Karibuni, you want to see inside? He opened his mouth, but Mama touched his arm. Enough. James, you show us where to sit. Inside, the auditorium was packed. Kenya's middle class, artists, students, men in sharp suits and women in Ankara dresses. Murmurs, laughter, cell phones winking everywhere. As the lights dimmed, I watched my mother's face. She gripped her handbag in both hands, her chin set stubbornly. The opening scene filled the screen. Harun, a character based on Baba, sitting in a minibus, counting coins as the city roared past. The audience hushed, leaning in. Every subtle cue, the creak of metal, the music I'd grown up with. The faces from my old neighborhood felt heavy and raw in that bright, expectant space. For 2 hours, my family watched. Patrick forgot his coolness, leaning forward, elbows on his knees. They gasped at the robbery scene, whispered when Mama's favorite lullaby spun through the credits. When the words, written and directed by James Otieno, flashed on the screen, a wave of applause crashed in, rolling through me like thunder. People stood. My name was called, once, twice, then 100 times. As I stepped onto the stage, the faces melted into a sea of light. Some I knew, most I did not. My chest trembled. I glanced back at my family, at their shocked open faces, at Mama's hand pressed to her mouth. Patrick was standing now, uncertain but clapping, eyes wider than I'd ever seen. After the show, the crowd surged. Producers, journalists, other filmmakers. Awards were announced, then handed over, a trophy, winking silver in my palm. I found my family outside, under the harsh lights, beside an empty sodas table. Mama's hand was cold and trembling in mine. James, she said, her voice thick and urgent,